And welcome to LSU Focus. It is pre-match build-up show time with Liverpool kicking off at the very rare kickoff time of 3 o'clock on a Saturday. One of the few times we're ever going to do that this season. This time we're in Premier League action against Leicester City at Anfield in what is possibly our toughest game so far this season. Obviously, we had Chelsea at Stamford Bridge a couple of weekends ago, and I think everyone was looking at that as the first real test for this Liverpool side. But when you judge it on form in this season alone, Leicester are by far and away the more difficult team to play against. You know, they're third in the Premier League at the moment. They're doing very, very well under Brendan Rodgers. I think since he actually got appointed towards around about the halfway point of last season, if you take the points total since then, they are actually still third place based on that as well, with obviously Liverpool and Man City occupying the top two spots. I'm not entirely sure who's where, but obviously the most important stat is that at the moment Liverpool are top of the league. So obviously this is actually going to end up being a huge test given the form Leicester are in at the moment, and I could not be happier that this game is at home. Obviously we had the issue last season where we drew with them at home, and we want to put that right. They were a different team back then, of course. They had a different manager. I think Claude Poole was still there, so they were playing a different style as well. Obviously back then Claude Poole, it was all about defensive football and maybe trying to hit opposition teams on the counter-attack. Now under Brendan Rodgers, and I'll come onto this a lot more later on in the video, but it's much more based around possession football, around actually trying to dominate matches and create clear-cut chances through, you know, movements that can be repeated. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see how we get on coming up against them. Obviously it's up against Brendan Rodgers as well. It's his first game against Liverpool since he was sacked as Liverpool boss all those years ago and replaced by Jurgen Klopp. So I reckon Anfield will give him a good reception. I think obviously the wounds have healed now. It's obvious that he was never quite good enough for the Liverpool boss or at the Liverpool job, or at least at that stage in his career he wasn't quite good enough for the job. But I think he certainly did his best. He gave us the 13-14 season. You can debate all you like about how much that was down to the players he had available as well, but at the end of the day he was the man at the helm, and he took us as close to the Premier League title pretty much as we've ever been over the last 30 years. So I think he deserved a decent reception. At the end of the day, he's never badmouthed the club. He didn't run us into the dirt like Roy Hodgson or anything like that. So I think we can give him a warm reception. Obviously, he's not going to be treated like Rafa Benitez. I doubt his name will be sung or anything like that. But I'd like to see Anfield give him, you know, maybe a clap or something like that. But obviously, the main business is about beating his Leicester side. And so going into that with some team news going into the game, Jurgen Klopp had his press conference today, and there were some very, very interesting updates on player fitness. The one that I think a lot of people have focused on since his press conference was Alisson Becker, who Klopp confirmed had returned to training yesterday and apparently looks very, very good. The way he talked about it, he didn't necessarily say either way whether or not Alisson was going to play tomorrow. He essentially said that, I think the exact words were, "we'll see," and that there are lots of decisions to be made and lots of discussions to be had between now and 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon tomorrow as to whether Alisson Becker will be fit enough to play. But obviously that's a very, very positive sign, because we were kind of led to believe that this Leicester game was just going to come slightly too soon for him and that we could expect him back for the Manchester United game in a fortnight's time. So it's great news to know that he's available to play. It's also great to know that with Adrian being such a solid backup while Alisson Becker's been out, I don't feel like we're going to rush it at all. You know, if Alisson does play tomorrow, then you feel like it will definitely be because he is 100% fit and not just because we're rushing him back because he's miles better than the backup goalie. If Alisson's not 100% ready to play the game, then I have no doubt that Jurgen Klopp and the rest of his coaching staff will feel more than comfortable fielding Adrian for yet another game, because I feel like he kind of deserves almost a farewell appearance as well. You know, if he plays on Saturday, it'll be obvious that it'll be his last time as Liverpool's first choice goalkeeper for the foreseeable future should Alisson Becker remain fit and healthy for the rest of the season. So it'd be nice to sort of show our appreciation for him a little bit, because he has been absolutely fantastic during Alisson's layoff. But yeah, very, very interesting quotes from Jurgen Klopp. It sounds like Alisson is a lot more likely to play tomorrow than we originally thought, and as he said, it's very much a will see matter and something that will be decided even closer to the time than now. But do not be surprised if you do see Alisson Becker in the starting lineup. As for players who are definitely not going to play tomorrow, sadly Joel Matip is still sidelined through injury, the injury that kept him out of the game against Salzburg. Klopp said that he looked good in training, you know, he's been all right, but this game just comes a little bit too soon. And I think given Matip, like a lot of our centre-backs really, pretty much apart from Virgil van Dijk, has a slightly iffy injury record. You know, he hasn't necessarily been fit for an entire season at a time at I think any point throughout his Liverpool career. So it makes sense that we're being a little bit more cautious. And obviously with the international break coming up, it's kind of good timing insofar as he obviously misses out in this game, but he's then got 2 weeks full recuperation time so that he is ready and raring to go for the game against Manchester United. So Joel Matip will will not be playing this weekend. Shaqiri is also out again, which is a massive shame. Would have liked to have seen him get some football over this run of games, but hopefully he'll get some more opportunities after the international break. We've obviously got European games home and away against Genk after the international break. We've also got the League Cup tie against Arsenal, so hopefully Shaqiri gets some football there, but he will not be available for us this weekend. Apart from that, I think it will be interesting to see whether Jurgen Klopp actually rotates even more with his squad, because I think if one thing maybe stood out against Salzburg, it was the fact that these first team players, or at least some of them, are maybe suffering from fatigue a little bit. One person that really stood out for me was Jordan Henderson, and I'm not going to criticise the way he played, because I know some people have been doing that and saying that he's not creative and stuff like that, but I think he's done his job perfectly well. You know, obviously, as we all know, the fullbacks are the creative outlet from deep for Liverpool, not those central midfielders, but I thought what Jordan Henderson did offer was fantastic. He obviously plays in the pass that allows Alexander-Arnold to set up Andrew Robertson against Salzburg, so I've got no complaints with the way he's actually playing, but I do think he's starting to look a little bit leggy. You know, he's had fitness issues in the past, just like some of our other players like Joel Matip, and it is kind of a question over whether or not he can play and to the best of his ability in this weekend midweek schedule going on and on and on and on. I look back to like our Champions League run in 17-18, where Jordan Henderson was sort of one of the last midfielders left standing, and now we had to be really, really careful managing his fitness in that, and that was almost the birth of the Gini Wijnaldum playing in the number 6 role, because we simply couldn't play Jordan Henderson in that many games without risking some sort of injury. So I think players like that, there is the possibility of them getting rotated out, because obviously having only played Salzburg on Wednesday night, there's less than 72 hours between the games, which means Jurgen Klopp has had, you know, less time to actually even get the players back to full fitness, and even less time to tactically prepare. So I think we might actually see a little bit of rotation in the side. So as for how I think we're actually going to line up, I get the feeling we're probably going to go with Adrian San Miguel in goal. I think if we still had Mignolet, then I think it would be a totally different story, and maybe we do see Alisson Becker coming back in. But I just think Adrian's been so solid, and if Jurgen Klopp's talking about it as a we'll see kind of situation, I think a last minute decision almost sounds a little bit risky. And if Adrian's going to be performing to the same level that he's been performing at so far this season, then it's not like there's going to be a significant drop off. So why risk Alisson Becker unless he is 100% fit? Especially when, as I said, we've got the international break after this, so we can let him have a full recovery. You know, if Jurgen Klopp wants to play him for the sake of match fitness, so he's not coming in from the cold against Manchester United or anything like that, then that's a totally different story. But I think he'll be looking to be a little bit more cautious. Obviously, that's been the line the whole way through Alisson's layoff. It's been all about the fact that he hasn't suffered this injury before. We aren't used to goalkeepers suffering injuries, so we're playing it cool and playing it more cautiously than we normally would with injuries, because we don't exactly know how the player is going to recover. So I think we carry on with that cautious approach and stick with Adrian San Miguel in goal, which also means there's a slightly less unsettling look to the back line. Obviously, Alisson has played so many games, but they're now starting to get used to playing with Adrian behind them. So it's a working formula, so why change it at such a crucial juncture? So I think Adrian starts in goal. The centre-back pairing, again, is obviously going to have to be Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez. Joe Gomez obviously didn't have the best game against Salzburg, although to be fair, neither did the rest of the defence, so he wasn't exactly helped by the fact that pretty much all of them were having an off day. So hopefully today, you know, we see a more solid game from Virgil van Dijk, a more solid game from Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson, and we get to see Joe Gomez tested in slightly more normal circumstances than the absolutely bonkers game that was Liverpool 4, Salzburg 3 on Wednesday night. But yeah, Joe Gomez will almost definitely be partnering Virgil van Dijk as the centre-back pairing with Joel Matip still out. The full-backs, I think, stay the same as well. Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson, obviously, they're the kind of players that I do think really are starting to need a rest. And in the ideal world, maybe we put Gomez out for right back, or we bring Milner in as a left back or something like that. But I think with the international break coming up, there'll probably be some sort of liaising with the coaches and stuff like that. Andrew Robertson, it's a bit difficult because he's the captain of Scotland, but there'll probably be some sort of arrangement there. And of course, Alexander-Arnold rarely plays both games for England, so he'll hopefully get some sort of rest over the international break. So that is the defence. Moving on to the midfield, I think we definitely stick with Fabinho in that central role. However, I think Henderson might have to drop out for this one, although he did come off fairly early against Salzburg. I think he got pretty much 60 minutes in that game before James Milner came on. I do think we just need to be a little bit more careful because it's not just about injury, it's also about the intensity, and that midfield, that really is the engine room of the side, and we need the players in there to be raring to go. And if Jordan Henderson is even slightly fatigued from the build-up of matches that he's been playing, then I think it's best to, again, just play it safe a little bit and take him out the side, and he can always be a useful option coming off the bench. So I think Fabinho plays at the base of the midfield. I think Gini Wijnaldum keeps his place further up, and then I think we bring Oxlade-Chamberlain in as well. We've seen Jurgen Klopp use Oxlade-Chamberlain quite a lot this season. I'd also like to see Naby Keita as well, who got a very, very short cameo against RB Salzburg, and it'll be interesting to see how Jurgen Klopp uses him moving forward. It's obvious that the medical staff have informed him we need to be very, very cautious because Keita's had all sorts of kind of short injury layoffs that have built up to kind of restrict his playing time at Liverpool. And I think what we're trying to do now is introduce him as slowly and carefully as we possibly can so that when he is fully integrated into the side, it's not at the risk of him getting another injury. So I'd like to see Keita. I think it's more like we see Oxlade-Chamberlain, who has, of course, been very, very good so far this season. So that's the midfield. And then I think the attack pretty much picks itself. They've obviously been slightly patchy over the last few games. At times against Salzburg, they were fantastic. At other times, they were slightly dodgy. I thought they were a bit stodgy throughout the entire game against Sheffield United. And one thing we have seen is that introduction of Divock Origi while keeping the other three on the pitch to change the formation and go back to that 4-2-3-1, which worked quite a lot around this stage last season. And I think if things aren't going perfectly against Leicester at the weekend, we will see that again. Origi will come back on and play on the left. Salah will be moved to the centre in a more sort of number 9 kind of role, and then Mane gets moved to the right and Firmino gets dropped deeper. But I think we stick with the usual formation for the start, because what that does give us is, even if the formation with Origi is working better at the moment, it means we can switch to that, and it gives us that kind of extra second wind later on in the game if things aren't going perfectly for us. So taking a little look at Leicester then, obviously as I mentioned at the top of the video, they've started the season absolutely fantastically. They have 14 points from a possible 21, which in any other season would pretty much put them there or thereabouts in terms of the title race at this stage, although obviously with Liverpool starting with an absolutely perfect record, Leicester are well out of the conversation for the title. However, I think a lot of people are talking of them as outside sort of dark horses for the top 4, with teams like Man United and Arsenal and Chelsea and Tottenham all having very mixed starts to the season. It does look like there's the opportunity there for maybe one of the lower league sides to have a really, really good year and kind of force their way into those Champions League spots. So as I said, they've started great, 14 wins. It's interesting when you actually look, 14 wins, 14 points even, only something like, how many wins is that? 4 and then 2 draws, I think it is. 4 wins, 2 draws, and a loss to Manchester United at Old Trafford, I think, is their record so far this season. But I think it's more interesting when you actually analyse their performances a little bit closer so far, because obviously we all have them down as the kind of all-conquering, attacking Brendan Rodgers side that is mental going forward, but also slightly shaky at the back. But when you look at the numbers, they've actually been very solid in both departments. They've only conceded 5 goals so far this season in the Premier League, which puts them at joint fewest conceded with, of course, you guessed it, Liverpool Football Club, another team that have kind of had their defensive credentials questioned so far this season, despite how, you know, if you actually look at the numbers, they've been fantastic, just like Leicester have been. But then going forward, they've scored 13 goals in 7 games, which is a very solid return, but it doesn't kind of scream the 13-14 Rodgers side that, as I said, was crazy going forward, but also slightly suspect at the back. So they're a very, very good footballing side. I think what was interesting about Jurgen Klopp's press conference was just how much he talked about Jamie Vardy and just how much he talked about Jamie Vardy getting inside. He was already mentioning it in his press conference after the Salzburg game, and how he said, if I was Brendan Rodgers watching this game, or if I was Jamie Vardy, I'd be thinking about how I'll probably get at least 5 one-on-one chances with the goalkeeper in the game on Saturday, if of course Liverpool play like they did against Salzburg. So it really feels like Jurgen Klopp is drilling into the side over the last few days, although as I said, it's very difficult to get any sort of tactical prep in when these breaks between matches are so short. But I think the main message that he will have drilled home is about defensive solidity and is about not crumbling to Jamie Vardy, because he does, of course, have a fantastic record against us. But I think what's interesting about Leicester this season is they aren't using Vardy as that kind of singular focal point in the same way they have over the last few seasons. When they've played against us and Vardy has had such a fantastic scoring record, it's been because every single attack has gone directly through him. It's all about those quick balls over the top or in behind the defence to to find him as quickly as possible, get him running in off the shoulder, in behind the defence, and getting those one-on-one chances against the goalkeeper. But what we've seen from Vardy so far this season is Rodgers is deploying in a much more diverse role. He is dropping deep, he is dropping wide, he's more about drawing defenders, and I think that's what we have to be careful about. And I'm slightly concerned that Jurgen Klopp is too obsessed with stopping Jamie Vardy, that players are going to be focused solely on him and not realising that actually what Leicester are doing at the moment is creating a more multifunctional attacking unit where Jamie Vardy is used as much as a decoy as the focal point, and you see him dragging defenders out wide to create spaces. You look at the first goal that Leicester scored against Newcastle last weekend, where Ricardo Pereira just runs from deep from that right back role. Jamie Vardy drags the centre backs out wide to the right, and Pereira just has a free run through the middle. And admittedly, it's a fantastic shot and a fantastic run, and you'd hope that at some point along the way Liverpool would have the quality, pardon me, to stop that. But it is a warning sign that they are much more multi-dimensional going forward than they have been in the past, and we shouldn't just be obsessed with stopping Jamie Vardy. Although of course Liverpool have never really deployed a man-to-man system defensively. It's always been about marking the spaces, so hopefully Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez will be clever enough to not just get drawn out by Jamie Vardy, and will be much more aware of the players that are trying to fill the space that Vardy has vacated. So obviously Leicester are a very, very, very intelligent attacking unit. As we all know, Brendan Rodgers, while he did struggle at times at Liverpool, he is a great coach. He knows what he's doing, and I think Leicester is the perfect level for him right now to be plying his trade. And obviously, as I said, they are an outside dark horse for the top four this season, and they will see this as a huge chance to cement those credentials. Their last big game away from home was Old Trafford, and I think they slightly let themselves down there, losing 1-0 and never really threatening in the way anyone really expected. Everyone thought that, Vardy and Maddison would be putting all sorts of pressure on that shaky Manchester United defence, but it just never really materialised. And I think they'll be looking to, make amends for that defeat in the game on Saturday and prove that they have actually got what it takes to be competing with the very best this season. So Liverpool have got to be on their toes. This is, like I said, potentially our toughest game of the season. I'd definitely say it was if it was away from home, but hopefully we can use that home advantage. I think we are a different beast in a way at home. Sometimes when teams play really, really well and they have a good attacking plan, if they do that in their own backyard, then Liverpool can struggle. But it's very, very difficult, as we know, for a team to come to Anfield and try to have any sort of control over the game. That is why Liverpool have such a fantastic record at Anfield over the last years. That's why we've gone pretty much 2.5 years unbeaten at home, and I think it's really, really important that not only do we keep that record running this weekend, but we get yet another 3 points, because going into this international break, having not even dropped a single point in the Premier League would send out such a huge message, not just to Man City, but to everyone else, that Liverpool are becoming almost the impossible team to play against. So I'm going to back us for a win this weekend. Again, I think it's going to be really difficult. I think it's probably going to be 2-1, maybe even a 3-2, 3-1 at best. I can't see us winning by more than 2 goals. I think if I had to put money on a result, it would be 2-1 or 1-0 to Liverpool. Let me know what you think's going to happen this weekend down in the comments below. Apart from that, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, as always, you know what to do. Hit that like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LIVLEI Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back tomorrow with the post-match reaction after Liverpool have hopefully beaten Leicester and maintained their perfect start to the season. Until then, bye for now.